food. So we're just going to start with, I know that Kate and Derek and Andy did some really good breathing techniques, and you guys probably already might know this one, but this is called alternate nostril breathing. And this one is really good for a whole range of things. So it goes from relaxing and calming your body, your nervous system, but also really good for energizing and focus. So you're looking at the left side is actually really good for calming, relaxation, and the right side is really good for energizing, clarity, and focus. So what we do is we just hold in the index fingers fine, holding one nostril, and we're breathing in one nostril, and we're swapping nostrils and breathing out that one. We're breathing in, and we'll swap again and breathe out. We're breathing in and breathing out. In again and breathing out. Now that one's a really good one to do for a couple of minutes, morning and night, or when you're feeling like you're a bit overwhelmed, because the breath is the most important thing. And each presenter who's spoken over the last week or two has talked about the breath and breathing, how we get that fresh oxygen into our brains, into our bodies. This really helps with any time we're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, or anything like that. So always coming back from the breath. So we just thought I'd teach you a different technique to the others that you've learnt over the last few days with the other practitioners or presenters, which is great. So I want you to get your brain switched on. It is Monday, and we really need to get through a whole week of whatever we're doing, whether it's work, remote learning, whatever it is. So a common thing I like to do is to reset our hypothalamus to really get clear that brain that started off. So what we do is we look up. So we just, without looking up like this, look up. So by looking up, resets your hypothalamus. So it actually reconnects everything. So it starts getting those neurons and those brain wires firing. So just by looking up. So at times when you're finding you're really feeling overwhelmed or there's too much going on, you feel unfocused, by just looking up actually helps to clear all the emotional thinking, comes back to that prefrontal cortex or the frontal lobe, which is the thinking or the logical part, to remove the emotion and brings it back that way. So another technique I'd like to do is just at home, wherever you are, in your lounge room or bedroom or office, is I just want you to look at something in the room and call out something completely different. So I would say texter, say beach. So I want you, just a way to, again, get that brain switching on. So looking at things around the room and saying something completely different. And I just want to see how your brain goes there. Sometimes that one can be quite challenging because your brain, what it's looking at, is always wanting to concentrate on the thing that it's focused on. So that's a really good one and a really quick one. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we're just playing up a bit like this. Okay, so let's moving on. So we've spoken about a lot of different pillars of well-being, and especially around mental health. And it is so important at the moment that we do care for our mental health. So when I'm talking about optimal living, I'm talking about our organisation around our house, our brains, our focus around family, work, decluttering that space that we're in. So, you know, decluttering our bedroom space, decluttering the office space, decluttering the house. And I know at the moment it can be quite challenging because everyone is home more. There's probably more clutter. There might be more toys. There might be more office supplies and papers around. So, but it does help your mental health if we can clear some space. So you have sort of that clear space to work in the morning or clear space when you go to bed at night. And it's also a good time to cleanse. So at the moment, I do find people are probably eating more, maybe drinking more alcohol because it is, we are home. We're finding it's our comfort food or our comfort thing to have a drink. But it's also always a good idea to have a bit of a cleanse as well, you know, drinking lemon water, having days that you might just have juice or soup, giving your digestion a bit of a break from heavier foods and things like that. Next one is mindset. We're talking a lot about the mindset today, and I know the other facilitators have been talking about our mindset is the most important. and again, mindfulness, which I'm talking about today. So the way I'll be talking about mindfulness is different strategies and tools that you can use in your everyday life rather than sort of just feeling like you have to go and meditate in the corner. Talking about optimal health, and that will be including sleep, and I'm going to talk a bit about sleep today. I normally do nearly a 2-hour session on sleep. It's very important for our well-being. And then there's that healing and self-nourishment and self-care. And I know Kate spoke about the self-care on Friday. What are we doing to nourish ourselves during these times? What are we doing for our own healing? And sleep is one of those important things. But we'll talk a bit about what things you're doing that make your heart sing in these times that are a bit more challenging or difficult for us. And there's that physical movement and fitness. So we know with our mental health, if we exercise or get out and get some fresh air, it really does help with our mental health as well. So some of us are actually exercising more because we have more time on our hands, or we're not, traveling to Melbourne for work and spending, that extra 3 or 4 hours in the car. But others are feeling a bit overwhelmed and tired and just can't be bothered. So we have that range of different things. I know I went for a walk yesterday and there were so many people out for a walk because being a Sunday, and so and I've noticed so many people coming past my house with their dogs and kids that I've never noticed walk that many times past my house before. So it is amazing, people are getting out more. So overall balance, I want you to think about with yourself is when you're checking into your overall balance, I'm looking at your mind and your body. So I want you to think about how you're feeling at this moment. Are you physically balanced? So with your exercise, as I was just mentioning, your nutrition, the type of foods you're eating or putting into your body, how's your alcohol intake going? Has it increased? Has it stayed the same? Has it been less? How are you feeling like with illnesses at the moment? Have you been pretty well at the moment? Or have you also with injuries, are you recovering from some injuries? Just take a moment to have a think about how you're feeling physically. And then we have our how we're feeling mentally. And I might know from our poll we did at the start, some of you were feeling anxious and overwhelmed, and others were feeling hopeful and optimistic. But are we finding at the moment, are we unfocused because you might be homeschooling and trying to work, or it's just all out of the routine working from home when you're used to working in an office full of people? Are you feeling tired or exhausted from all the news we're hearing or all the changes that are going on? Just take a moment, how you're feeling mentally around that. And that falls onto emotionally how we're feeling at this moment. And this could, as I said, could have been different yesterday. You might have had a great day yesterday, and today when you woke up, the kids were screaming or things weren't working or technology wasn't working, and it's changed your mood for today. And so are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling, depressed? And again, this could change each day that comes. And are we socially balanced at the moment? Are we actually, connecting more with people like with Zoom and Messenger and things like that? Or are we feeling we just don't want to talk to anyone? It's that how we contacting our loved ones that may be in isolation by themselves or friends. How are we feeling? Do we feel like some days we really want to talk to people and other days we don't want to talk to anyone? And then are we feeling spiritually balanced? And this could be around, are you doing your yoga? Are you, now there's churches, I think they've opened a bit if you go to church. Is this that, you get daily meditation? Well, this could be, spiritually balanced with laughing and having fun and dancing more and things like that. I can't find what I had, but anyway, I'll find it in a minute. So, when we're talking about our mindset, I really want to talk about like our brain. So it's a thinking tool, it's not a storage tool. And you'll probably find a lot of the time we have so much on our brain, it's like the open tabs in our brain. So I really want to talk about some quick strategies to help you remove a lot of the junk that's in your mind at the moment. And a lot of it at the moment probably doesn't need to be there, about worrying about the coronavirus, externally, and all the information that it's, the people that are killing overseas and things like that. We need to bring it back to what we can cope with and what's relevant for us and our families and our loved ones. So what I talk about is breaking it down. When I'm talking about breaking it down, is like in a daily time, what can we achieve today? What can we do just today not thinking about the whole week, not thinking about the months ahead. What can we achieve just today? And I believe what I've been sort of working on the last, couple of weeks while I've been in isolation is just trying to complete one satisfying activity a day, and one that is actually pleasurable activity, whether that's going outside, catching up with a friend over Zoom or something like that. But just thinking about, one of those satisfying activities and one of those pleasurable activities. The satisfying one might be, cleaning out a cupboard that you've been wanting to, or a drawer that you've wanted to do for ages as well. Or, do that weeding that's been sitting there for ages and you haven't had a chance to do that. And these just help you have those daily purposes of when we're working and the days seem to be blending into each other over and over again at the moment. I know that we have a bit of a dance-a-thon at our house. And we just do put on some silly dancing, and often we put on some costumes. I know lately when I've been doing these Zoom webinars, I'm noticing that, we're not being able to get to the hairdressers and so I've been wearing a lot of wigs lately. So lately I've been wearing wigs for my sessions. I used to wear this in my 20s, 25 years ago. Needs a haircut with a wig as well, where we wear funny glasses, we wear crazy clothes and things like that. So making, your catch-ups and so fun and exciting and breaks it up. I love, looking at my friends wearing crazy glasses and crazy clothes and things like that, or watching their kids, putting on their dress-ups and just talking to their friends wearing, fun clothes and things like that. So just finding that thing that makes you laugh or brings that, joy back into your life. One thing I have always spoke about is a brain dump, and I think Kate might have spoke about it briefly on Fridays. At the end of the day, or when you find you've got a lot on your brain, is just writing everything down. So it doesn't have to make sense. It could just have things like got to get bread, got to ring this person, whatever it is, can be the tiniest things, but we need to empty that brain out, because in that slide just before about all the tabs open, we want to close those tabs. And the only way we can close those tabs is to release it from our brain and putting it down on paper. And so then we can look at it the next day or when we need to. So just it's a good way to empty the brain. And it could be the slightest thing as, I've got to wash certain clothes, or got to buy laundry detergent. The simplest things you need to write down, because you don't want the brain to having to store information that's not really essential for us. So I'm going to just briefly talk about grief, because I know the other presenters have spoken about grief, but I know there's a few people on here that haven't attended those ones. But we all know that at the moment we're all dealing with the global collective loss of the world that we know it. It's and it was just taken sort of overnight. So everyone is grieving in different ways, and we sort of go through those stages of anger, denial, acceptance. We have those 5 stages of grief, and we're all at different stages, and we can rotate back and forth from where we are. And we have to be mindful of, like, our children who are grieving, maybe not seeing their friends. They may be acting out, but it might be that they miss their basketball grand final, or they just don't get to go to school to see their friends and hang out with them. So they deal with things in a different way, like us as adults. We, might not be able to work with our mates. We're not getting to go out and socialise. We may not, I know my husband was so excited to get into his tennis grand final. And of course, the tennis grand final was cancelled. So that happens with so many people with different sports and activities. So we are all grieving in different ways. But I really wanted to speak about the 6th stage of grief, which is David Kessler has just released a book recently called Finding Meaning. And so his work is based on, together with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, about the grieving states. But he talks about that finding meaning, and that during this time of grief, it will be that time when you go through all those stages of grief, what will be finding meaning. So in this time, what has it meant for you? And you won't probably may not know until next year or 3 years' time of what the meaning was for you. It might be that you developed new skills. It might be the fact that you had a better connection with your kids, that you've been a bit, working so much. It might be the conversations you had with friends were really deep and wonderful conversations. So finding the meaning in this time that we are going through now. And as I said, you may not know now, you may not know in a couple of months, but when you look back on it, it will be that time when we look at our kids or our grandkids will actually be learning about history in their history classes about that time in 2020. that everyone has to stay home for a few months. So it'll be interesting times there. So this session is on mindfulness, and I wanted to remind you that mindfulness is not necessarily going and sitting meditating for hours in the corner, or going to a yoga class and meditating. It's actually just being aware of our thoughts and our feelings and our physical sensations in our body. So it's doing that without having the judgment. So it's actually just being present in this moment, you sitting, probably sitting on a chair. And I just want you to actually sit there for a moment and be aware of what you can feel in your body. So how does it feel to be sitting on the chair or the couch or wherever you're sitting? Some of you might be watching from bed. I want you to see how it feels. How does it feel, that sensation of you sitting? And then I want you to think about how you can hear things around. So can you hear me talking? Do you have kids in the background? Do you have your hubby or your wife, in the other room on a Zoom call? Can you hear the birds outside? I can hear the dogs barking next door here and some birds outside. And again, it's that the taste. What can you taste? Have you just had yummy coffee or breakfast, or can you just taste, just your saliva and so just recognizing the taste that you have? And then the smell. And the smell you're often probably not aware of. At the moment I have some essential oils burning, so it's quite, I can smell it quite well. But other times it might be that scent of, some fresh flowers in the room, or the fresh air. You've got the windows opened, or, the salt air. Me being down at the beach, I can hear and smell the salt in the air. But what can you smell? And then, of course, what we can see as well, which we use often, is our skin. So being present, as I just mentioned, being in this present moment. And while we're in this present moment, at this very moment, we actually, probably 99.9% of us are safe. We're safe and we're well and we're okay. Things can change minute to minute and day to day, but at this moment while you're watching this, you're probably feeling okay, and you're actually, you're safe as well. And then the number C is that choice taking. And this is what Kate was talking about on Friday, about how we react to things, how we behave. And so depending upon how stressed and overwhelmed we are, we can react to things differently than we would when we're feeling quite, calm and relaxed. And so it's being mindful at the moment of things that might be triggering us, whether it's, be our partner that's home more, or our kids being in our space more, that they might be triggering us. It's not their fault, it's just the way we're reacting, because we might be feeling overwhelmed, we might be feeling a bit stressed, and so we are getting triggered a bit more than we probably normally would. So being aware of, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, without reacting straight away, is maybe take a few deep breaths, maybe drink a glass of water, maybe go into the other room for a moment, and then you'll find that you'll probably be okay again, whether you feel like you need to address the situation. But just having that pause, just finding that pause in between is really important. And stepping out of that autopilot. We'll probably find more in the present moment that we have at the moment than we ever been. Often how when you're driving to work beforehand, or some of you might be still, you can't even remember getting to work because you're actually been on autopilot. Okay, so I just want you to think about some mindful activities that you do enjoy that you may not have thought was mindful activities. So things like, playing board games, doing jigsaws, dancing, cycling, painting, going for a run. These are all mindful activities. So I want you to remember that these are actually mindfulness in the different form that you probably expect. So mindfulness is doing anything that takes you out of your thinking brain and you just in flow. You're just doing it, you're only concentrating on that one thing that you're doing, that jigsaw puzzle or that dance routine, or fishing for that fish. That's mindfulness. So really have a think about in your life activities that you do that are mindful that you may not have realised. I want to quickly just read about, this is a really good time for us to be creative and imagination. And although this now, I just realised that the Virgin Group is in Australia are struggling a bit at the moment. But I always think with Richard Branson, he says within the Virgin Group, we've moved from brand mail order to also, space travel. And so you have to think outside the square, especially in times like this, that, your job or your industry may be changing and how you can change with that. We're coming to the end, so I really want you just to, I've got a few things to go through, but I want you to remind yourself at this time when you may have a little bit more time up your sleeve, is to go back to your character strengths and your core strengths and work out what they are. And the VIA character strengths do free surveys online that you can find out if you're not sure what your character strengths are, or they may have changed over time as well. It's a really good time because then you can come back and work out what you can change, what your strengths are, how you can use them to move forward. So I suggest if you haven't done a character strengths thing to go and do it. And as I said, VIA character strengths, and it's or it's just VIA. You can look it up online. It's free and it's a good way to update your skills and have a look at what your strengths are. The other one is values, and at the moment this will be very important to you. So your home and your work values. A lot of people's values are, stay at home and we need to look after each other, and other people's values are like, let's still just do what we need to, get out there. And so it's looking at what your values are and how they fit with what's going on at the moment as well. So just briefly talking about mindful eating, and I know a few of the others have spoken about mindful eating. The main reason I talk about mindful eating is if we eat in a stress state, our body, our digestion switches off. So when we're watching the news or reading newspapers at the moment while eating, most of the news is not that great. So our body goes into the fight or flight, and the first thing that happens then is our digestion switches off. We can't absorb the nutrients we're eating. We then have digestive problems such as reflux or gas or bloating and things like that. So being mindful of just concentrating on the foods we're eating rather than watching or reading or listening to things that are not so great. The same thing as mindful eating about moving. A lot of the time we get a coffee or a snack and we're walking. The same thing happens. We actually, our body says, okay, we need the muscles to turn on and not digestion, so it switches the digestion off. So it's a really good one to come back to with mindful eating. I'll quickly talk about music and the fact of play music to bring, to bring you joy, to relax you. Music's great. It'll take you to other places when you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious. And it's really good to dance and move as well. We've only got a minute left, so I might leave this one, but it's a really good technique. I might even put up online for you guys to do, but I want to just move into quickly with this one, the upper cross syndrome. We're all sitting at computers, laptops, phones, and all that sort of thing at the moment. Be mindful how we sit. We really need to keep our spine straight. So we're suggesting that you're doing techniques like this. Regularly, we need to open up this area as much as we can. We don't want to end up like this at an early age. Very good one like that. Doing the cobra, the yoga, cobra when you're stepping back. Anything that we can open this one up. The bow and arrow when you're laying flat with your legs back and up like this, very good. But anything you can open up this is very important. I've got about a minute left. I'll quickly go through some of these. So rolling back your shoulders when you're at your desk is a really good one. Rolling them back, moving your neck and so, shrugging them up and down, doing the twist. So just doing some twists there, but you'll have this one, drinking water, essential. Drinking water switches your brain back on, so please keep drinking water regularly. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I've got a really good one that I love to do. It's very simple, and we just use each finger and thumb. It'll be like this. And we say, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. This somehow, by doing a mudra and a mantra, which is something that you do and that you say, rewires the brain. So we've done a lot of techniques about how it rewires your brain format, and so the DNA starts to change in that, creating peace within you. So that's a good one as well. I haven't really got much time to talk about sleep, but I really just, if I've got about 30 seconds more, sleep is our Swiss Army knife. It is our first aid kit. With sleep, it will actually fix or help any ailment or anything that's going on with you to a degree. So I'm just going to read out some of the points that might be different to ones that you already know about sleep. One thing I want you to know is when we go to sleep at night, it's like a detoxify system. So you may not have known this, but what happens is in 2012, they actually found that when we sleep, our brain actually is, that's when it's actually revitalizing or it's nourishing yourself. So what happens is it's like a car wash at night, or sort of like deep sleep, cleaning our brains at night. So I just wanted to read quickly about why that happens. Is because we have chemicals that build up in our brain, and the only time they're released is when we're in our deep sleep. So otherwise these toxins build up in our brain and they won't be released. So that's when we have things like Alzheimer's and dementia and cancer like that, because not enough sleep is actually all these toxins are building up and they can't release. So some suggestions to help with that: caffeine. Caffeine affects our deep sleep by 20%. So if we're having caffeine after, say, lunchtime, we struggle to get into our deep sleep. And deep sleep is when our physical body is rejuvenating. Alcohol is another way. We think it's a bit misunderstood. We think it's helping us sleep, but what it does is it actually puts us into it knocks us out pretty much. So we actually not even going to a deep sleep, we're actually just sedated. We miss out on that REM sleep. And the REM sleep is the important part for the emotional recovery of our body, or our brains. And if we're not getting that emotional recovery, then that's very detrimental to our health as well. So caffeine after lunchtime, not a great thing. Alcohol, pretty much the best time to have alcohol would be the morning, or 11 o'clock in the morning, because otherwise it stays in your body for up to 80% over that time. So something you may not have known of when you're drinking your coffee or alcohol, it is affecting your REM sleep and your deep sleep. Quick things about checking. One of my best techniques for swimming nights sleep, and I know we're over, is to get fresh light in the morning. What this does, it sets the serotonin in our brain to set the melatonin to kick off 12 hours later. So get outside straight away and check your the sunlight and things like that. So getting sunlight. Sleeping on your left side actually helps you fall asleep, so there's a really good one as well. And try not to nap unless you really need to, because we have a certain amount of the chemical that builds up in your body, and it needs to stay there until you become sleepy. I have so many more things I'd love to teach you about sleep, but we need to finish up now. So thank you regarding that. I just want to finish up with this that I think is quite interesting at these times. Perhaps there is some merit when they say hard times are like a washing machine. They twist, turns around, knock us around, but in the end we come out cleaner, brighter and better than before. Let's remain hopeful. So thanks everyone for the session. Thanks so much Marie and Harvest for putting these sessions on. I hope people have found a really good benefit from these sessions that we've run over the last couple of weeks. So thanks Marie, and thanks to Harvest.
That was fantastic, Jo. I was actually able to just sit back and enjoy, and like sometimes in hosting the webinars, I'm in facilitation mode and making sure everything's right in the background. But with this one being our fourth one, I found it was really good just to stop and prop. I'll just share the results of the poll. So most people felt overwhelmed, and some were hopeful, some were optimistic, and then we had degrees of different feelings in there. From here, Jo actually has quite a few programs, and we've listed a couple on the back of the webinar today. She does have a 5-hour mindfulness program, and it can be in 1-hour webinar chunks, but also short, sharp, shiny 20-minuters. So you're just getting that reset, the mindfulness reset, which I think is amazing. I really enjoyed hearing those little pieces. We'll send through that VIA character strengths test as well with the recording of the webinar. But as I said, Jo's program is amongst a broader mental health and wellbeing program that all of our facilitators have contributed to. We are offering 25% off the program, so we will email that with the webinar recording to you after the webinar. Finally, we've also got one more webinar left, which is accessing employee access program. So it's the program that is run by clinical psychologists, so EAP as it's very well known. A lot of us, if we are doing a mental health and wellbeing program, and I did speak to some of our facilitators, if you're traveling solo, it is good to have a personal assistance program or an employee assistance program next to you, because it can elicit some strong emotions, and Kate talked about the strong emotions on on Friday. So it's important to know what access is available to you. But again, I'd like to just thank you, Jo. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. It was fantastic. We are over time. Anything else that you'd like to quickly mention, Jo?
Pretty much there's so many mindfulness techniques out there. Just come back to yourself with the breath, drinking water, and just enjoy the time at the moment that we can. We'll never get this time back again. So spending loving time with loved ones and work on yourself, whether it's a course, something, learn a language, or you just want to rest and look after yourself, nourish yourself. It's a good time to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jo. Everyone have a great day. Go back to this webinar because I think it's really good to reset and be like in the moment and not judge yourself too much. So thank you once again. Have a fantastic day and we look forward to sending you the webinar shortly.